This video is about short field landing practice. The reason for this is sometimes in an emergency you have to land in a field somewhere or on a roadway or something, and you have very limited distance. So it's something you should practice and learn how to do. All right. Obviously the plane is running already. I set it up so the plane is running, and we're going to have to do a few housekeeping chores. First up, we're going to check the trim setting. There it is. That's a takeoff trim. I like it a little bit below takeoff. And next, I'm going to set up the, just for reference, the autopilot altitude indicator. Again, this is for the autopilot, but I'm just going to use it for reference. So to set it to what's called our traffic pattern altitude, which is around 1,200 feet. And next, I'm going to set the heading bug, and that's the little indicator right here. That indicates what the what the heading is, and I'm putting it right at the top, the same 52 degrees, the same heading as the runway we're on. And finally, we're about ready to go. We're just going to release the parking brake, so we'll be able to take off. And now we're ready to go. All right, here we go. Getting ready to take off. I'm using the rudder pedals to try and keep the plane centered on the center line until we get to rotation speed. And we're looking pretty good. Again, using the rudder pedals. Okay, wants to veer to the right a little bit. All right, off the ground. We're off the ground. Now, the heading bug indicator that I put at the top that I pointed out, the little blue mark at the very top of the compass, that's the heading we want to hold until we get 500 feet above ground level. And we can see we're too far to the left a little bit. I just have to steer to the right. The altimeter is coming up. Once we get to about 680 to 700 feet, we can turn left 90 degrees. Now the nice thing about that little blue bug indicator is if you look on the compass, you'll see there's a dash at 90 degrees, there's a dash at 180 degrees, and a dash at 270 degrees. So I'll just look around here a little bit. So it makes it easy to keep track of where we should be. As you can see, the little bug indicator now is going at 90 degrees. We're going to stop turning, continue climbing until we get to about 1,200 feet. By the way, we were climbing at trying to keep the nose up and maintain a speed of 74 knots while we were climbing. That gives us the fastest climb rate. We're already at the altitude we want to be, so I'm cutting back on the throttle, pushing the nose down and trying to get the plane to fly straight and level without any back pressure on the yoke. And we're getting it under control here. If you look at the compass at the very top of the panel, you can note the horizon on that. That's the proper way to tell whether you're flying level or not when you're flying VFR. Make a sharp left-hand turn. We're going to turn another 90 degrees, and now we're parallel with the runway, but we're going in the opposite direction because we're making a traffic. I probably should have mentioned we're going to make a traffic pattern approach to do our short field landing, which namely means you take off from the runway, turn 90 degrees, climb, turn another 90 degrees, fly parallel to the runway, go past the threshold, then turn another 90 degrees, so you're perpendicular to the runway you're going to land at, and then turn another 90 degrees and land. We're just checking to see what we have to keep flying in this direction until the threshold of the runway disappears behind the seat of the plane. In other words, it's like approximately 45 degrees behind us. And look to the right there, you can see the threshold off in the distance. There's the threshold right there. That threshold has got to disappear behind the seat, and then it'll be time to turn another 90 degrees. So we're flying straight and level, trying to maintain around 1,200 feet, 11 to 1,200 feet, pattern altitude, and slow the plane down. There's some factory buildings in Lawrence. There's the Merrimack River. And continuing on here. If you look at the horizon on the compass, that's approximately level flight right there. Keep the horizon right there, and you're level. You can also look at the attitude indicator and see that we're flying pretty level, not climbing or descending. Take a look around. Look to the right, Merrimack River, off in the right. All right, we're making our turn. And we put in, by the way, we put in a notch of flaps, slowing the plane down, trying to slow the plane down. Turn to 90 degrees, and if you look at there's the airport through the window right there. There it is, right there. There's the threshold. And if you look at our little compass, you'll see the little blue mark is now on the 270 degree mark. So we're flying perpendicular to the heading we're going to take to land. There's the runway off there, and it's about time to turn left and head into the runway. Okay, here we go. Put in a full notch of flaps and slow the plane down. To the left, there's the runway. Just about where the compass is, you can see the runway. That's behind the compass right now. There it is, just appearing to the right of the compass. That's the heading. That's the runway, rather.
500.
And now we want to line the runway up. And you'll notice our bug indicator now is right back where it was when we started. We're lined up with the runway. Now we have to come down and try and land a short field landing. On the runway, there's different markings. There's dashed lines which you follow, and there's a couple solid rectangles. It's called the landing zone. We're going to try to aim to land on the landing zone and stop short. To accomplish this, we want to slow the plane down. We got full flaps on. We want to slow the plane down to like 50 knots. Stall speed for this plane with full flaps is 40 knots, but you can hardly handle it. If you get down to 40 knots, you can hardly handle it. So 50 knots is probably good to try and get to 50 knots as we land. We look at the long factory buildings in Lawrence. It's amazing. Imagine working in those factories in the years past when it used to be textile plants. All right, here we come. We're getting a little low, I think. We're down to 54 knots. Altitude is about 330 feet. Altitude of the runway is 130 feet, so we're about 200 feet above ground right now. Coming in, trying to maintain our altitude till we get over these trees. Alright, then you look at those two large rectangles up ahead, one to the right, one to the left of the center line. That's in the large rectangles in the distance. That's what we're going to try to land on. Okay, we're coming down coming down, trying not to stall, slowing down, going down. All right, cutting the throttle down to 40 knots. Here we go, land. And we're down. Brake, put the brakes on, pull back on the yoke as we do that to raise the elevators, which acts like a spoiler, and we're here. This is a view of the landing, looking from underneath the plane, under the undercarriage. Watch the wheels touch down and see if we hit the landing zone, which is what I was aiming for. Here we're coming in. See that in the distance you can see the large white rectangles. Here we come. We're going to try and land on them. And here we go. We're getting close. And no, we went past. I went past them by a couple hundred feet. Oh well, but we stopped short. And come to a stop. Now we're going to look at it again, this time from the right hand side of the plane. We descend. Coming down, there's a small white triangles, rectangles, and here's the big ones, and as you can see, we went by it. Now if you look at the back of the plane, you can see the elevators go up in the air. I found on the internet someone talked about making short field landings, and when you land, when the speed gets below 40 knots, you pull back on your yoke and put your elevators up in the air. It acts like a spoilers, like on a big jet, and helps slow the plane down. And we are looking from further away inside of the plane. And lastly, we're going to take another view, just looking at the elevators, which I was talking about, pulling back on the yoke as the plane lands, gets below 40 knots, to make the plane stop even quicker. Coming down, okay. Down, the plane's below 40 knots. Put the elevators all the way up, pulling back on the yoke, and we come to a stop. And that's it. That's a short field landing.